It is a consciousness. It's aware. It thinks. It has feeling. It's like us, just bigger and better, and less fear and ego. It's an individual. Okay, so it makes assessments. It looks at probability. What's the likelihood that that damage is going to occur that will be problematical? Well, when it comes to that conclusion, that the probability that this is going to be beyond the person's ability to deal with it and it's going to cause a lot of damage to that entity, that's when it decides to step in. Or it may decide that, well, it's 50-50. Maybe the entity can deal with it and maybe they can't. So maybe I'll just keep a real close watch on that. And if it looks like it's gone negative, I'll jump in and do something then. It can do whatever it wants. Again, it makes its choices based on its assessment of the probabilities. This is a probabilistic virtual reality. Everything's based on probability here. All of it is calculated based on probability. That's the nature of our universe. It's the nature of our reality. The nature of consciousness, too. So the system looks at all the actors, everything that's in play, all the past history of that entity and all maybe the other past lives they had. It's got all this information, and from that information, it comes up with what its best choice is. The choice may be to monitor and relook at it later. The choice may be to jump in right now or to wait, or there's no need to jump in. But it looks at the probability of lowering entropy in the long run. Okay, that's its key. So if it looks at this and says, well, in the long run, that's likely to raise the entropy, and it's going to be a very negative thing. And it may say, well, sometimes negative things are just a result of what's going on. Like the results of wars and things. Well, we learn from wars. They serve as good, bad examples. So that sort of thing, it's not going to jump in. It's going to let us stew in our own juice and have to suffer the consequences of our own choices. But when it's not your choice, when you're only 5 years old and somebody's torturing you, then there's not really much of a choice there. You just have a possibility of damaging an entity so that their next lifetimes are going to be biased by that damage. It's going to hurt. So at that point, you decide to jump in. It's not about suffering the consequences of our own decisions. You see, it's a different kind of animal. So it looks at all the various situations, decides what's good for the overall evolution and for the individual, because what's good for the individual is good for the overall evolution. Those two things, they're independent, but they're highly correlated. And then it decides what it's going to do, when it's going to do it, when it's going to stop doing it, and to what extent its intrusion into this reality is warranted. So it's really the same answer, and it's just the system does what it thinks best based on trying to optimize long-term entropy decrease, whatever that is.
Okay. The question went on to ask, do animals check out also during violent deaths and such?
Yes.
That's good, because that has a particular significance to what is going on in Australia now. 500 million animals have died in the fires in Australia.
Yes, it works the same way. Animals are conscious. They have, they're not that much different than us. They're just different avatars. They have consciousness. Their consciousness is not the same as ours. It's very similar in the way it works. The mechanics are all the same. All its attributes are just the same, but there's differences in capacity and in capability. Okay, so a dog is conscious just like a person's conscious, and the conscious works exactly the same way, but it comes with different capacities and different abilities. Okay. Same with orcas and dolphins and creatures that have much bigger brains than we do. You'd think maybe that gives them a larger decision space because there's more things that they can do here. Well, different capacities, different qualities. So yeah, they work exactly the same way, even for a bug. Matter of fact, you can see that if you've ever noticed, and I noticed this once when I was lying in a bed, and above me was a ceiling light that had one of these globe shades that's on the bottom of it. So there's a light bulb in here, and then there's a shade up to the ceiling. And you notice when you look at those things, there's almost always a couple of dead bugs in them. You clean them out every once in a while, but you look up and there's be a couple of little black spots inside that that light shade, and they get dead bugs in them. And I one time was lying there looking at that light shade, and a dead bug dropped in it just then. And the bug went over to the side of the globe, which was kind of straight up on the edges. It was rolled up like this, and it got to the steep part and it couldn't get out. So it's just sitting there, running its little legs and feet as fast as it could, but it just couldn't get out. It was stuck. It couldn't walk out of the glass bowl because the glass was too slippery, and it didn't have the kind of feet like a fly that can stick on glass. So it was just stuck there. And I watched it, came back and looked at it again. I was curious about what it would do, having gotten stuck in a situation where it couldn't retrieve itself. And I noticed that within a very short period of time, it died. It didn't die because it starved to death. It didn't die because it didn't have any water. It was way too short. That let me know that it died because there was no hope. It died because it was going to die, so it just terminated rather than go through the starving or thirsting to death, which would have been a long, slow process. So it just quit. So yes, even bugs do that. If there is a situation where there's nothing but negative experience after that, then there's no point. You can just stop and go have another lifetime. There's no point in just persisting when the probability of success is zero. So it's the same for somebody whose parachute doesn't open. They're 10,000 feet and they leap out of a plane and the parachute doesn't open. Then it's the same sort of thing. There's no point for them to experience the splat. That would be a kind of a horrific end. So mostly at that point, they just find themselves out of body. And then they find themselves in the transition reality. And then they find themselves eventually going back into another incarnation. They don't have to experience the awfulness of that.